CNN and the New York Times getting backlash from both sides of the aisle over their choice of debate questions Tuesday night, from impeachment to unlikely friendships, but nothing on immigration.
House Democrats have officially launched an impeachment inquiry against President Trump. Why shouldn't it be the voters who determine the president's fate? Ellen DeGeneres was criticized after she and former President George W. Bush were seen laughing together at a football game. Tell us about a friendship that you've had that would surprise us, and what impacts it's had on you and your beliefs.
So there was that question, but nothing on immigration. Shouldn't the moderators have at least mentioned the issue that polls show Americans care the most about? Here with her take is analyst for Young Americans for Liberty and author of How Do I Tax Thee, Kristin Tate. It's maybe the biggest issue in the country right now, Kristin.
You're right. Polls show that this is the most important issue to Americans, immigration is, and it's easy to see why. This summer, the Trump administration announced a record-breaking surge of illegal immigrants at the border. About 1 million are expected to be apprehended this year. In fact, just yesterday, Trump's spokesman on immigration said there are about 22 million illegal immigrants in the United States right now. But during the 3-hour debate, the CNN and New York Times moderators didn't even ask one question on this issue. They also did not ask questions about other critical issues like housing, climate change, and China. In fact, it seemed like the first 2 hours of this debate were all about Donald Trump. I mean, even when the questions didn't mention Donald Trump, the candidates usually came up with answers that did, and many of them came up with answers that said they wanted to impeach the president. A great example of that is when Joe Biden was asked about his son's business dealings in Ukraine, and instead of actually addressing the issue and the apparent conflicts of interest, he answered the question by just saying that he wants to remove Trump from office.
Well, I mean, Kristin, a lot of people expected that there would be, questions about Donald Trump. That is for sure. That's not a surprise. But, a lot of Americans feel like with these debates, this is really how they get a sense of these candidates on the issues that we as Americans care about, the people who are voting care about.
Right.
And let's take a look at two separate tweets here. One from Leon Castro slamming the question, saying, quote, 3 hours and no questions tonight about climate, housing, or immigration. He goes on to say climate change is an existential threat. America has a housing crisis and children are still in cages at our border. But, Ellen. And then Kamala Harris says 3 hours, not one question about the climate crisis, not one question about LGBTQ rights, not one question about immigration. These issues are too important to ignore. You have the candidates who want to talk about these questions, and you have the American people who want to hear what they have to say about these questions.
You're right, Jillian. It's really hard to take these debates seriously when the moderators themselves treat them as non-serious events. I mean, they asked that question about Ellen, the talk show host, but not one question about China's communist regime and its evident domination over corporate America. And as you mentioned, the candidates themselves were even criticizing the debate questions. It's easy to see why this debate brought in near record low ratings for CNN. And this is just another great example of why so many Americans are losing trust in CNN and other mainstream media outlets. A Gallup poll found that the majority of Americans now do not trust the mainstream media, including 9 out of 10 Republicans.
Yeah. All right, Kristin, thank you so much for your input on this.
Guys.
We'll see if they ask it in the next one.